Welcome. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. First item, I'll call the meeting to order. Subject section 1983 Wisconsin statutes. First item is to adopt the agenda. Dr. Spacuzza, any changes?
No changes from administration.
Okay, we'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Vicki, would you care to lead us? Get out.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is the recognition of visitors. Anybody in the audience that would care to be recognized at this time? Okay, I'm going to move forward. We'll go on to good news around the district.
Yes, I'm going to start that we have officially been notified by our supervisor for the school board, for the school student council at the high school that Mackenzie Hegland will be our student representative for this academic year. She will begin joining us starting in September. At this time, I'm going to call our administrative team to give any updates or good news with regards to return to learn or end of swimming lessons and summer school. We'll start with elementary.
All right, Sarah Dusick, elementary principal. So just last week, our last official summer school class ended with swimming lessons. We do have some student advisory and student council stuff going on right now too, and their high school classes are finishing up some stuff. And the next thing that Susie Linder and I are gearing up for is our Return to Learn days on August 30th and 31st. Getting ready to welcome students back to school on those days as part of our summer school programming, and then official first day of school is September 1st, Friday, September 1st. That is also going to be our first 4K day of school also. So we've been making sure that messaging has been going out to 4K families that we are having school on that first Friday. We have a couple hours to make up for Collaboration Mondays, and that's since we had to turn on 2 Fridays, and that's one of the Fridays that we turned on. And then just orientation at the elementary building and the intermediate building are going to be from 3 until 6 on August 29th with the Back to School Bash hosted by Malone Parent Committee from 3:30 to 7:30 at Malone Elementary School. So,
Thank you very much. Michael Kozmowski.
Yeah, at the intermediate school, like Principal Dusick said, we have our ramp up or return to learn days. We're planning again to do our Cardinal Olympics in conjunction with the high school. So things will be a little bit different. We won't have a track and field events, but we will continue our kickball tournament, which is very popular with all of the kids. And then we're going to move things inside to the high school gymnasium to do a number of different events, some accuracy, both basketball, football, things like that, and then move outside for some relays. So that will be on that second day on that Thursday, the 31st. Again, 29th, as Principal Dusick said, is our orientation night, picture night, tours of our new space down at the Prescott Intermediate School at 125 Elm Street. So we're excited to welcome families there into our new hallways and staircases, which are new to all of us. And we're trying to figure out where we are half the time. Teaching and learning, we had our first day of data dig yesterday, so we had about 25 PLC leaders from across the district that were working all day long. We were looking at both assessment literacy and how are the assessments set up and percentile ranks needed to achieve proficiency in basic and advanced and those sort of things, and how does that feed into what we anticipate to see in our data, and then what did we see in our data. So we're just in the primary steps of breaking that data down and looking at comparisons, both longitudinal, one cohort, grade 3 cohort last year to grade 3 cohort this year, but then following that cohort from 3 to 4 and what sort of growth did they have. So we do that across the entire district all the way through high school and up to our AP exams. Most of that is still embargoed, so I can't share a lot with you, but pretty positive from what we were seeing and some things that we expected. One thing I can share, because AP is not embargoed, our AP scores are higher than ever. We've got more credits than ever. We have more students participating than ever. So we continue to grow that program, and thank all those teachers that take on that extra duty and training that comes along with it. And then also the students and the families that take that on as well. So just great opportunities for our kids to earn some college credits before they are in college. And that's it from Teaching and Learning.
Thanks, Michael.
Kyle Lago, middle school principal. August 29th is our family back-to-school night. This year, it is on the same night as our elementary, so we've kind of all piled together. But I needed to move ours to Tuesday, August 29th, rather than typically it's on, or historically it's on our first day of in-service always. But I need our teachers, my teachers, to have a little bit of time to get themselves oriented with the building and settled and make their classrooms look like learning spaces. And so this year we're doing it on that August 29th along with everyone else. 4 to 7 are times that we'll be there. We'll be giving tours. Some of it will be open house style. We'll do our normal 6th grade orientation meeting at about 6:30. And really it's a time, again, as Mr. Kosmowski said, for our families, our students, our parents, siblings to see our new space that we are in. A lot of our students have been and lived in this building before, but it looks a lot different than what it has in the past. The building is looking really, really sharp. It's looking extremely clean, and the spaces are really nice. So I'm pretty excited. I had a couple of teachers in yesterday, and we were starting to think of a couple of different activities for our Return to Learn days, and they are also extremely excited to get in there. So what we're going to do with our 2 Return to Learn days on the 30th and the 31st, a lot of it will be orientation of the building, along with teaching our expectations and remembering how to be learners and doing all of those things. But we're going to wrap that into how and where we're at in the building, where we're going to go, and just getting used to our spaces. That way we can hit the ground running on September 1st, being active learners and being active participants in class.
Good evening, Josh Figge, the high school. Just 3 quick things. Our Return to Learn dates, similar. August 30th, we have our freshman orientation day, bringing in and welcoming all freshmen and kind of getting them familiar with the space, protocols, logistics of the building, and starting that relationship building so they feel comfortable on the first day when all students are in the building, which sometimes can be a little more hectic. And then on the 31st, as Mr. Kosmowski said, we're carrying our third annual Cardinal Olympics, and I'm excited that it's up here this year, and so we've got kind of a bevy of new activities for our kids. And one of the things we were talking about today is Mr. Montreal and Mr. Kosmowski and I planned was we're nearing the group that would have gone through this as 5th graders the first time, and so it's going to be exciting to see them become leaders this time as they go through it. Secondary, as you see the slideshow somewhat go through, and if you're watching online, you can't see that, but as you watch it go through, we just ended our 2nd day of new staff orientation, as well as our data dig. And so I'd like to thank the district office members who put that on, and then our administrative staff. But we have a great crop of new teachers and staff members coming in. I think somebody remarked today that they were kind of an outstanding close-knit group already after only 2 days. And if you've ever gone through an orientation, it's tough to be really excited by an orientation, but they were. So we're just really fortunate to have them coming on board. And then lastly, as you see all the construction things, I'd just like to say a thank you to all of our custodial staff. I only see a sliver of it up here, and our staff has been phenomenal at getting the building ready, as well as hosting all of summer school. But I know the custodians at the other building too are doing amazing things. So just thanks to Mike Hoyka and his crew.
Thanks, Josh. Andrew Caudill.
So we are pretty much rolling as we are getting close to the school year. Our girls golf program has started in competition, and they are just as good as they have been in the last number of years. Football will open up on Friday at UW River Falls. Girls volleyball will open on Tuesday at Osceola, and cross country will open a week from Saturday here at home in Prescott. And then middle school football just started, middle school cross country and volleyball will get going in about a week and a half. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hi, Sandy Strand, Director of Student Services. I just want to report again Mr. Figge stole my thunder slightly, but we do have a number of new special education staff that are going through orientation, and I'm just so delighted and excited to have them. We've got a new speech language pathologist, a new secondary special education teacher, a new intermediate school special education teacher who incidentally is originally from the Ukraine, and she taught English in Italy all summer. So she's got a very diverse background of knowledge, and I had two of the new people in my office this afternoon, and they were so excited about what had gone on here in the discussions and what we were talking about in terms of our use of data and our focus on all learners in the district. They both had tears in their eyes. They were so excited about joining our team. So that's my good news. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Rick Montreal.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go backwards a little bit and just mention Empower You again. It was our Tier 2 intervention strategy we used last year. Happy to report much of the data that we got back this summer was very positive. We had 30 kids successfully completed. I even have quotes and things from the data. It was really cool to see the growth that our kids made. They focused on 5 main goals, from social connections to sleeping better, to less screen time, decreasing anxiety, improving mood, and almost a 90% level of success was seen throughout. Moving forward, we're going to do that again, launch it for year 2 this year, pretty much the same package. A bit of good news would be that we were able to secure funds to cover most of that cost.
That's great.
Thank you.
Nice.
I should say through a grant. I apologize.
Thanks, Rick. I just wanted to thank our community and business support. The Chamber of Commerce and the Kiwanis Club came together and hosted a luncheon for our new staff that arrived on the 15th. Also to Vicki and Helen for taking time out of your day and joining our new staff and sitting among them. I thought that was very helpful, and we have photos of that, and that'll be published as well. I was a little surprised, Josh didn't know, but these video slides are actually projected online. It's better visuals than you actually see here with the sun coming on. It's a direct loop, as only Andy Holland could do for us. So I did want to share to our community that we're very happy with the staff that is joining us, the passion that they have. They are already met with their principals, already toured the buildings and their sites, and I couldn't be more impressed with that group. In addition, just wanted to thank Michael and our principals. The data dig happens across 2 days. It's impressive work, and it's a lot of time that happens across the summer in order for that to occur. But I do believe that it helps us be a little bit more empirical and strategic and intentional in the programming that we provide. So kudos to the work that Michael does in kind of stitching together a very good story with regards for our staff. Obviously, our custodial staff across the district has done a Herculean effort. It doesn't go unnoticed, but boy, is it ever been an anthill of activity. Really impressed. 3 of our buildings are officially ready. All of the rooms are set up and very similar to what staff typically walk into the beginning of the year. And I'll give you an update with regards to the new middle school during the update on the referendum work. And then finally, good news is that we have 25 students that have responded to our Vision 2035 work session that'll be facilitated by Teamworks. That'll happen on the 22nd. And then our staff will be doing it in the afternoon. We've provided transportation for students that were unable to be transported by their parents. I wanted to thank Andrea Herzon and also Maria Damiani for setting that up, working with Tim, getting those letters out and RSVPs. And it also required, believe it or not, homework for our staff and for students to kind of show snapshots of learning environments that either enhance and elevate academic learning or become obstacles. And that's been impressive to kind of see that coming in. So with that, I am really excited about the school year, a little exhausted myself as we head in, but it's a very exciting time of year, and we're happy to welcome our families and students back to the school year.
All right, thanks, Rick. We'll move on to school business. First item is the consent agenda. I'll read through these. In the consent, we have the July 19th, 2023 board minutes, board checks and finance, non-licensed personnel, retirement, resignation, employee change of non-licensed staff, beyond the notes, field trip, return to learn, and continuity of learning plan, the consider sped bus using federal flow-through DPI dollars, approved overnight girls basketball trip, and approved trip to Lac de Flambeau overnight for October 5th through the 8th. Is there anything in the consent that the board would like to pull out?
Yeah, I'd like to pull out the beyond the notes and the overnight basketball.
The beyond the notes, so that's number 4, and the girls basketball trip?
Yeah.
Okay, so number 4 and number 6, Rick?
7.
I just had a quick question. The sped bus, is this the one that we talked about last month?
Yeah, I was going to pull that one out too,
Okay,
Tanya. So let's just
thanks.
pull it out and we'll talk about it. So,
Okay.
So 3 things, beyond number 4, number 6, and number 7. We're talking about pulling out of consent. All right, so we'll need anything else to pull out? Is that it? I will adopt a consent agenda as modified. Are there any objections? All right, the consent agenda is approved.
And then a friendly request, do you want to pair the 2 overnight trips together and then the bus separately? And then
Yeah.
what order would you like to go?
Let's just go with the trips first.
Okay.
And then we'll do the bus second.
Sure.
Yep.
So the first one, we'll go through that first, right?
Yeah,
Or
we'll do beyond the notes
Okay.
and the girls overnight.
Can you help us walk through?
Sure. There are 2, these are annual, each trip for Beyond the Notes is an annual trip. I'll have both my middle school principal and activities director come on up. Also, Leah, do you want to come up? You've historically presented on Beyond the Notes. There are 2 separate issues. One is about an athletic team and sport wishing to extend their opportunity to participate in a tournament that would be overnight in December. And then with regards to our academic programs for band and choir, which is not requiring an activity fee to participate, I think it's in Madison in April. Is that right?
In the Dells.
Dells.
Dells, okay.
So our Beyond the Notes trip, and this year the trip's a little bit different. Choir goes in April and band goes in May. Historically, it has been together. The Beyond the Notes Festival has grown so large that they have split it. One is at the Wilderness and one is at the Kalahari. And so that's a trip. We presented on Beyond the Notes last year. It is an overnight trip that is 100% fundraised by each individual student. It's either fundraised or paid for out of pocket by the student. We typically have, this past year we had about 90% of our music kids go down. 100% have not attended in the past. We help cover the costs of anyone who is in a financial hardship. We do that with some other exterior fundraising, some family donations, other angel fund type things. But it is a 100% fundraised by the students, and it's something that is outside our regular curricular program through the classroom instruction.
So a quick question, but approving this, would this be approving both the band and the choir? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So quick question. So my question comes down to the busing and comes down to also, this is outside, it's a field trip, but it's also, they're expected, correct me if I'm wrong, they're expected to follow standards, right?
Yes.
So it's not just a field trip?
Yes, so they are, it's very much like, and we've kind of modeled our expectations and our standard off of Jason Canfield's Disney band trip. So it's very similar to that. But yes, they have to follow standard. They have to follow a code of ethics. They have to meet grade expectations throughout the entire year. And so, yeah, it's just like any other extracurricular piece that we do, like the DC trip that we went on, they had to follow a code and, be a good, active, standing student in order to participate.
Sure. My question is, looking at that it is, students don't have to go, but you do have to participate in band or choir
Yep.
or, STEM. So this is something that students have to be a part of, either or, right? The class, per se.
Yep, so we have to be a part of the class.
My question is, where I came, I was looking at the other, and I don't know if I can combine these, because that was where my question came, but that there's nothing provided from the district when it comes to transportation. And I'm wondering if that, but the other one I see there is. And so we do get funding per se, per student, to every student we have. So I'm wondering, because that's a lot of fundraising. And I've went multiple times. And so I'm wondering if there's, because this is transportation, if there's a way that some of the funding that should go to that, to the class can go to that transportation component.
Well, and they are two different things, because, so like to participate in band and choir, it is a regular class. You do not have to go on the trip. Like I said, there are more people this past year who've opted out of the trip than years past. And we don't charge an activity fee to participate. So like, and you're kind of pairing it with basketball. Basketball, you pay, and I have no idea what the activity fee is, but you pay some sort of an activity fee for that. And some of that reimburses that transportation for sports and whatnot. As far as what we are reimbursed for transportation, I don't think that is for field trip transportation, because we do charge for other field trip transportation throughout the entire school year.
And that brings me back to that, because we already kind of have, like, that brings me to that next step. So I'm glad that you clarified that. Thank you.
And questions on the girls, or is it in?
Yep.
Okay.
So my question with that is, we kind of already alluded to this, where, yep, you do pay a fee. So can you clarify to me why there's an athletic fund 10, right, that's getting pulled out? I see that, like, I think it's 1745 is getting pulled out. And then there's athletic fundraising that is I think it's like 676.0. So are you saying that all of the athletic fees that they pay go towards this transportation?
All athletics and activities, the district provides transportation because there's an activity fee. And so all teams have the option to upgrade transportation to a coach bus. So when that happens, I'll ask Mr. Runquist, how much does the yellow bus cost? The difference the athletics team or any team must cover in fundraising. So softball took a coach bus to Northwestern last year. Girls basketball took one to St. Croix Falls. It's available. And so if they don't have to do that, if they don't want to. So in this case, girls basketball elected to go the coach bus route. So $17.45 is what the yellow bus would cost. So the difference, so $39.82.56 is what the quote for the bus was. So the difference, girls basketball had to fundraise for. That is the only thing that the district would cover on a trip like this normally. What makes this trip a little unique is that we are identified as the home team in one of the games, so we got to cover the officials. $190 is an estimate. They pay officials a lot less in that part of the state than up here, so it's probably going to be less. Everything else is fundraising. Athletics fundraising is covering expenses for myself and our athletic trainer, because we bring our athletic trainer on trips like this. Girls basketball is responsible for everything else, and so that's why they've been working to fundraise, and why there's essentially 3 buckets for this trip.
Okay.
And that's how all the trips are. So girls volleyball is going to Whitewater next week. It was a very similar breakdown.
Okay. So this athletic 10 fund, just for me to clarify, that's all of the fees that are paid. So this is for across the board?
So athletics fund 10 would be the district budget for athletics. We provide transportation to all district athletics and activities if an activity fee is paid for. The activity fee goes back to the district, doesn't necessarily go back to athletics or anything, but we then provide that transportation. And it's in my handbook that teams need to take district transportation because it is a legal liability as well. So,
Okay.
so yes, while yellow bus is always provided, but like I said, if they choose to upgrade, they can. Now, a team like girls golf, they take a district suburban because they don't have enough kids to justify a bus. So district transportation, that would also be covered if it's a van or something owned by the district and driven by a district actor, which it would be a coach in that case, or a bus driver.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay,
Anybody else have any questions?
all good?
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
You want to take each separately, because as a...
Yes, so we need, each of these we need to take separately. So for the Beyond the Notes field trip, let's start with that one. So we'll need a motion to approve.
I move to approve the Beyond the Notes field trip. Is that what I said?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. And then let's do the overnight girls basketball trip as well.
I move to approve the overnight girls basketball trip.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. All right, and then the last one we pulled out was item 6 here, consider sped bus using federal flow-through DPI dollars.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that forward for a couple of reasons. Last month, we talked a little bit about the opportunity to potentially buy a van that had wheelchair accessibility. It was something that we had been trying to purchase for over 6 months. It's very hard, one, to find vehicles like that, and also to buy used vehicles. This is a very separate, and we, after meeting with Sandy and Tim, we've decided to hold, mainly as we continue to build our budget. We're not sure that we can do both. And we also are still struggling to see if we can even purchase our annual bus. So as we came down to it, I wanted to be clear that this is completely separate. It was an item that it is. We currently have a small bus that's dedicated specifically to special education student transportation. I believe it's a 22-seat bus with 2 wheelchair locations or spaces. The current bus is over 200,000 miles, has a lot of repairs, and it is necessary for us to replace. Because it is dedicated and solely segregated for special education transportation, Sandy is able to use and draw upon what are referred to as federal flow-through dollars. This means that it does not touch Fund 10 and it does not touch our fund balance. This is specific to dollars that we get allocated on an annual basis. Because these buses last about 20 years, sooner or later we do have to replace, and those dollars for flow-through can be used for other things in future years. But Tim and Sandy thought that this was prudent and timely to make sure that we upgraded that bus.
Any questions?
So just to kind of be clear, we're not looking at purchasing a van at this point in time,
That is accurate.
and instead, we need to do this anyways, and this is what we're gonna do. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's,
Mike, do we need to undo, is there any reason to have to undo last month's motion then to approve $40,000 for the van?
We didn't.
We didn't.
We didn't make a motion on it whatsoever.
Yep.
You're right, no motion was made, sorry, looking at the notes.
Otherwise, yeah, I think in the future we can just rewind. And
Yeah.
Yep.
Just kidding, we can't.
No, at this time, just to be clear, and Tim and I and Sandy don't believe we would be coming back on that at this time. And so this is the main purchase for the year.
perfect. All right, anything else?
How long have we had the previous bus that we're looking at replacing here? How old is that one?
We've had the previous bus for approximately 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's been a good bus.
That's good then. All right.
All right, we'll need a motion for this one.
I move to approve sped bus using federal flow-through DPI dollars as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries, thank you. All right, so now we'll go back to the regular agenda here and move on to item B, Consider retirement, resignation, new hires. We have no retirements and no resignations. We have one new hire.
Yeah, and I would just like a friendly request to at least acknowledge a resignation that was presented in consent because it wasn't necessarily licensed. Maria, if you would stand. I just wanted to thank Maria Damiani, who has been with us, and my executive assistant, and worked tirelessly in a liaison between the school board and to our district office. She greets everybody with happy Monday through happy Friday, and today it was happy last day. Not happy for us, but very happy for the time that she served our district very competently, but also because of her ability to take her skill set to a new level in the business community. So congratulations, Maria, and we will miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With regards to new hires, we do have one that came in. We were able to secure a special education teacher for our middle school. Chandler Marie Jokheim is going to be joining us, and I would like to put her forward for approval.
Any questions, board? I'll take a motion here.
I move to approve all new hires.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. And then item C is a set date for the annual meeting.
So, by statute, all public schools within the state, and I see the phones coming out, looking at their Google calendars, we must identify a date in which we bring our constituents forward, specifically to approve or review the budget for the fiscal year 2024. We would like to propose that it be the last Wednesday of September, on September 27th. It is and does require double postings into our publication, so we do have to make sure that the 4 weeks out and 2 weeks out that the agenda is published, as well as then the fiscal budget that will be adopted in October by the board is also in the paper. So with those timelines, it also has to occur before October, I believe. And so we are proposing that September 27th, which would be the week after our next board meeting.
Any questions, board? This is the annual meeting does not require a quorum. So if you do have conflicts, I think we can still move forward with it. If not, we can just take a motion here. And before we move on, do you remember last year, was it 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.
6.
Okay.
I move to approve September 27th at 6 p.m. for the annual meeting.
And if it's okay, can we designate the media center here?
At the media center at Prescott High School.
Thanks.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries, and we are through the business. On to info and discussion. First item is to discuss the Northwest Journey Counseling and Guidance Clinic.
Yes, and I'm going to start by sharing that we did have a work session. We did have a quorum present, and just wanted to thank Tanya Hollab for facilitating that meeting as vice president, and then for Vicki and Helen for being there. Sandy Strand was there, and a representative from Northwest Journeys was there as well. But I thought we could share first. Oh, that's right. Sandy, you weren't there.
No.
But I'm going to have you come up in a minute and present with Annie. But I thought maybe the board, the 3 board members that were present might want to share a little bit of just your takeaway, and then we would have Annie Wallen come forward and share a little bit about the program and what we're investigating. Unless you want to do it reverse, we can have Annie speak. Your call.
We can speak. I mean, that's fine. I can start. So we did meet with Northwest Journey Counseling and Guidance, and we talked about kind of the services they could offer our students in our district, and a lot of them aligned with the needs that we're seeing within our kids. I think we began formally talking as a school board, not this summer, the summer before, about some of the behavioral health needs that we were recognizing in our students, and talked about how we can add some more supports for kids. And with a little bit of, an extra couple classrooms at the new intermediate school, we were able to find space that aligns really nicely with Northwest Journey's services where they can meet the needs of our students. So we're starting to just have the conversation of how we can partner, have them come on board, have them be here on site, how we can make some access to counseling, which is really hard to find access to right now, really available for our families within our community. And it's just the beginning of a conversation, but it's something I'm really excited about, and what is something we've seen with it, like, represented within needs in our district. So it's a great partnership, I hope, so.
Yeah, it was, it's not only needed in our district, but our region. So it's nice to know that we can be a part of that as well. We talked a lot about students in general and how those students are part of our district, and we have to service them and, and give them what they need. And so it seemed like the parts were there, and doing the research, it seems like a really great option for our district. So, and then also, I still keep calling it the middle school, but the intermediate school. It really, the way that it possibly could be in there really fits well, which sometimes you can run into that building's kind of, so if something fits in it, that's good. So it was a really good, and you guys did a great job in presenting and answering all our questions, so we appreciate that.
I really don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
It's been covered.
So do we want to?
I thought we could have Annie come forward, maybe just describe a little bit about the students that we would be identifying, how that process happens, because it's not just the Prescott Public Schools or you. Talk a little bit about the county. Also, I thought just making sure that we understood that this is a regional need, and many of our superintendents and special ed directors have been talking about trying to do this, and I'm really proud that Prescott might have the opportunity of hosting.
Yeah, so I'm Annie Wallen. I'm the Deputy Director of Day Treatment and Clinical Services for Northwest Counseling and Guidance Clinic. Happy to be here and talk about our collaboration and a plan to get the services in your district and surrounding areas as well. So a little brief overview of who we are. We work with children and adolescents with emotional and behavioral difficulties. So most kids that come to us are kids that are struggling in all domains of their life, meaning at home, at school, and the community. And our goal is to just work with them to develop different coping skills so they can be successful in all areas of their life. Our goal is to get them back to school as soon as possible. Our goal is not to keep them in our services. They don't graduate. We discharge them, but they don't graduate from our services. We want them to graduate from high school. Like, our goal is to have them back in school. So criteria for our program. Kids that are coming to our program, we really want to exhaust the lesser restrictive interventions. We want to make sure that they've had outpatient counseling, they've had individual therapy, they've had, and not every kid that comes to our program has to have an IEP, but the school has had support services in place for them at school. Insurance companies a lot of time will dictate if they're appropriate for programming or not, and so we work closely with insurance companies to get that authorization for our program. What else do you want me to review? I have so much to say, I just know that there's not a lot of time.
Have your services ever been co-located or worked inside a public school?
Yeah, so I would say probably in 2018, we worked closely with Superior School District. For approximately 5 years, we were there. We ended up leaving Superior School District just because of the size. We just had one classroom and one office, and we just were growing, and we needed more space. So we continue to be in Superior School District, or Superior, just not in the school district. But we had a very good working relationship and collaboration with them. I asked them for a testimonial, and they gave me a little brief blurb that I forwarded on earlier, but it was a good relationship. We also have a coexisting relationship right now with Rhinelander School District, and that is current and ongoing. And other school districts have reached out to kind of explore the model that we have But as
And
of
we
right now-
talked a little bit about the space that would be earmarked for this program and kind of partnership. About how many students are we looking at? What age group would we be looking at?
Yeah, so for starters, we talked about starting a small group, maybe 10 to 12 kids. We also discussed capping at 8th grade. We could go as young as 5, but we really would want to take a look at that. Would that be appropriate to put a 5-year-old in a group room with a 14-year-old? Probably not. So I'm guessing that our age range would probably be around 10 to 14. And as we expand, we could have a younger group, and then we could have an older group as well. So eventually, we could go a 5-year-old to a 10-year-old program, and then 10 to 14 or 10 to 15, or beyond that if we needed to or wanted to.
What are some of the, how does the program operate? Is it a collaboration within the school? Are you a self-contained program with regards to running the office, phones, computers?
Yes. So we will be our own entity. We will be certified by the state of Wisconsin. We will be operated under DHS 40. While we possibly will be in your district, we will be operating alone. We will be incurring all costs associated with day treatment. Really, the only thing that Prescott needs to do is give us space, and we would be renting space from the school district as well. So there really shouldn't be any cost associated with us being in your district.
Helen, I think that's.
I think obviously it was part of the work session, so I know what your answer is going to be, and it was great then, so I'm sure it's going to be great now. But why January and February? I think that's important for the community to understand.
The timeline.
Why is that going? Like, why can't you start tomorrow?
Yeah, so there's a timeline. Obviously, we want to get school board approval. From there, we would like to hire staff, and all of this would happen through Northwest Journey. We could have Prescott School District representatives collaborate with us if they wanted to, but they don't need to. So we would hire the staff. We would then notify the state. We would go through the certification process, and after we get certified by the state of Wisconsin, we are hoping to open by January. So it is a long process. We have to have all of our staff hired before we can contact the state and have the state come. The state will actually come and do an in-person visit. They'll take a tour of the facility, make sure that we have our separate entrance, make sure that we have our clients and rights grievance hung, just making sure that we're meeting all the policies and procedures that are mandated by the state.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to add something, which is one of the, maybe just how this works for districts and for kids and schools. And so right now, we probably currently, as well as every school year, have kids that access this kind of therapy through the day. And so it's the majority of their school day, if not their whole school day. Normally, we have some other teacher in another district provide some kind of curriculum or instruction. And so I think the real advantage to us in this situation is we have the needs. These needs are in our district. We have our kids accessing this right now, but what we're doing is we're providing an opportunity to do that right here within their community. Our kids would have priority with, when it comes to, at least as we get started, priority for accessing this support. So we're not sending our kids elsewhere. Where they go right now is Eau Claire, they go to the cities, and so we're bringing them in and taking care of our kids within our community and finding some space for that. And I think that's, it's a challenge all over the place, and it's something that I'm really proud of having our district get to that place where we can begin having those conversations and recognize that this is a need, it's happening. The community probably doesn't hear about it all that much, but it's there, and I welcome the opportunity to really kind of take care of our own kids. So.
And Tanya, I just wanted to comment, Sandy Strand, Director of Student Services. One of the things that we know is that our students who do go to day treatment, either partial or full day treatment across state lines, there is an educational cost that goes with that. And DPI has recently started cracking down on that. We can no longer use state or federal dollars to pay for the educational costs of students who are placed in day treatment across state lines. So that really burdens our families even more, because the closest day treatment right now is Menominee or Eau Claire or Amory. And so this really does provide a service and a resource for our community, our region, and honestly, it puts us in an excellent position to continue to provide high-quality, standards-based education for our students here in Prescott who need these services.
And Sandy, when our kids access those, because they have a right to access those services, and then they have a right for the educational component there, when our kids, let's say they access services in Eau Claire, how does transportation work for them normally?
Generally speaking, when a student is placed in residential or day treatment, their parent is ultimately responsible for transporting them back and forth to the facility, unless there's an educational component. But even then, we are not required to transport outside of our district boundaries. So it is really a huge burden on our families. Northwest Journeys does do transportation, and they work collaboratively with school districts to provide the educational piece as part of their programming. But I also see this as a great opportunity for us to be able to provide some expanded services to kids that are placed and also draw some revenue.
Great, thank you.
Pat, do you have some questions?
I do. I think this is fantastic. I'm excited. I hope these questions aren't insensitive. From an insurance standpoint, Rick, are we got our kind of T's crossed and I's dotted from that standpoint of having a
We will, so we would have
lessor in
a
the building?
memorandum of
Okay.
understanding.
Yep.
We've reached out, but again, I didn't want to, we have been doing a lot of other things. This is, what's up on the screen is kind of the progression through the summer. We didn't want to put the cart before the horse. We have notified our legal counsel that we are exploring this.
Okay.
And then, based on the work that Northwest Journey has done with other schools, we would have a memorandum of agreement that would cover all those aspects.
But no known roadblocks to that issue right now?
Correct.
Okay,
We haven't had any roadblocks.
Okay.
Previously.
good,
Like I said, we would be our own entity, so we would be assuming all liability.
okay. From a security, we're bringing additional students in, from anywhere to, does there need to be a separate entrance? Does there, if they're going to be using, the restrooms, I don't know if the space we have available has their own infrastructure, but I don't know how else to put it, commingling with the rest of the general public, are there concerns there? What type of things might be in play to?
Yeah, currently, the space that we have identified is in the lower level of the 125 Elm Street building. It would have its own separate entrance, and it would be completely closed off from the rest of the student body. We have discussed the opportunity to access nutrition services, but that would be not during student contact time, or staff would be retrieving those items. And then we would also look at alternating our start and end times so that we're not overlapping when the larger student body is coming in.
Buses and everybody are coming. Okay. Thank you, that was it for me,
The
thank you.
space does have its own restroom.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
And actually, I just wanted to thank Michael Kozmowski as well, because he came in as the administrator of that building. We had looked at 2 areas within the lower level. I think we had a different option initially, and we came to what I think is a better option that works both for the academic programming of 4-5, but also then providing kind of a self-contained and access to, the bathrooms and things like that. And a separate entrance. So really appreciate the collaboration on that.
And can you remind me, how many kids are you looking at a time? Was it 12 or?
Yeah, a smaller program, 10 to 12,
Yeah.
starting
Yep.
out. And eventually, if we need to expand, we certainly have the room in that area to expand if needed.
And my understanding was that we already in our heads think that we have about half of those 6-ish kids or something that might be a good fit already. And it's, of course, a choice for parents and stuff, but yeah. So a lot of them would be our own kids.
And part of our role will be to reach out to
Yeah.
River Falls. I know we talked about River Falls School District, Hudson School District, and possibly Ellsworth. And part of our role would be to reach out to them and talk about our program as well. But knowing that Prescott School District ultimately has first and priority.
And then cost-wise for this program and our students being in it, this is not something that the district pays for, correct? This is optional for parents to choose, and how is it then paid for?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Vicki. So in a typical situation where a student is referred to day treatment or residential treatment, that's usually a decision that's made in collaboration with parent, usually some sort of mental health worker, maybe a member of the county, maybe somebody from CCS, where the student, like Annie has said, has kind of gone through a whole series of interventions, including individual therapy, maybe co-located services in the schools, and it's all just kind of fallen. Maybe they've been hospitalized a couple of times, and we do have students that kind of meet this definition, and they continue to have the challenges that they have. And in that situation, then Northwest Journeys works collaboratively with the family to work on funding options. So it would be a family decision, family-driven or social work decision, rather than a school district placement. So that would absolve us of the responsibility financially.
We work with the families and their insurance companies and obtain authorization prior to coming to our program.
And then you referred to it as day treatment, and when we had our workshop, you had said, and I kind of have to agree, that kind of has a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
So could you kind of go through the description of why these kids are there and what you're helping them to do? So that...
And Annie, remember the kind of the Goldilocks you talked a little bit. Our district has general ed and special education.
Yep.
I did hear the residential, and you're kind of in between.
Yep.
So if you could just kind of talk about that continuum.
Yeah, so there's outpatient therapy, there's intensive outpatient therapy, and then there's residential, and we are the intensive outpatient. So kids that possibly are coming from that residential program, coming from that inpatient hospitalization, they would come to day treatment as a step down. Kids that aren't being successful in outpatient therapy, maybe weekly or bi-weekly, or sometimes it's once a month, and they're not being successful, they would come to day treatment. And again, anyone can make that referral. So it can be from therapists, social workers, it can be from parents, and it can come from the school as well, depending on the school and how they feel about that. But a lot of times we will just give our information to the school district and have the school district provide that with the families. And then the families can kind of take the reins and decide if it's appropriate for their kid or not.
I think you guys asked all the questions I had, so I'm not going to belabor the point here, but anything else?
This is for Rick, but just to reiterate, this space, because I know the answer, but just the community is going to ask, I'm sure. This space is currently not being used. This is not going to move any programs. This isn't going to move any classrooms. This is open space.
Do you see my sad face? That's where I am currently. So the district office is currently there. We, although, can be and stay where we currently have been housed historically, and that's at the new middle school at 1220 St. Croix. There had been some discussion about having the district office there because it's not fully utilized by the school. When this became an opportunity, we thought internally as administrators that the district office, it was probably a better opportunity for the district office to stay where it is and use this space to service the needs of students as well as an opportunity maybe to have revenue coming into the district for it.
So now I'm going to throw the district office at you. I know that we have more personnel now in the district office. We have extra in the finance area. Where are they going to be housed? Because I know that district office right now has got 1, 2, 3 offices, and that's it. It's pretty crowded. So have you got some space where people can at least have a little bit of elbow room and
Yeah, we're well situated there. So we were over there before, and our planning, we will not move back until probably mid-September if you decide to move in this direction. Primarily because for our custodians and our teachers, we want to make sure every single classroom is ready. And so we're going to stay put until we kind of know what the direction is. But there's ample room for the 6 district office personnel in the 2 main areas that we have.
Okay.
All right, so this is going to come back to us next month for approval?
And I just wanted to share, so we have a timeline that's up on the screen. You can see that at home. I did want to just ask, is there any additional information that you would like as a community? As a school board. And then I'll share with you a little bit about our communication plan following this meeting before September.
And then one of the reasons why we asked to have this on the agenda this month was so that way if the community or teachers, staff have more questions, we can come back and talk again next month, or we can look at moving forward with it. So it gives us some more time to process as a community.
Anything else?
Okay.
Any information? Okay.
All right, so then just to share with you, as you heard in the good news, we are having our orientation week next week. So 100% of our instructional staff will be on site. This will give the opportunity for Michael Kozmowski and Sandy to meet with the intermediate teachers and share a little bit more about this program. Sandy is also working with her staff on the 24th and working with counselors, our school psychologists, and special education teachers, and they'll learn a little bit more about this program. That way we'll have input from our frontline staff and also from the 4th and 5th grade teachers, and we'll be able to kind of process that and clarify any questions. It also then allows, hopefully, for people that are listening and also at orientation nights, for us to start to have that conversation. We would bring it back for a business item in September. Obviously, the Pierce County Journal does a really nice job of reporting on our meetings, and so the community, I believe, will be well versed on that. And then also, I'll be on KDWA, and I'll make sure that we put that on the radio waves as well next week.
All right. Thank you.
Selfless plug for myself.
Yeah. We'll move on here to item B,
listeners
the
do get
district update district practices of renting facilities.
Yes, so I'm going to ask Principal Figge to come forward. Last year, we had an increased interest in accessing space within our public schools. And I think a lot of it is a good problem to have because coming out of COVID, many people, thank you, Annie, were really interested in being able to get people into structured activities, and we have many nice features to make available. But with any type of responsibility and facilities, there's a lot of dotting the i's, crossing the t's. And I'm going to have Mr. Figge, and I'll pull up his slide deck, share a little bit about what is available to all community members that is on the website. He'll kind of walk you through that, how we came to these decisions, and some of the balancing things that we had to do, both with fees, but also for liability. And with that, I will be quiet, hand over the mic to Josh, and I will find your slide deck here in a second.
Yeah. I think somebody else said you're great at teeing them up, so good tee up on this one as well. I'm glad that we're able to kind of present this tonight because I think anytime that you engage the community, and this is certainly really community-facing, there are questions, and certainly as the community face of the district, you guys probably get questions on these things too. So I'm happy to have the opportunity to present some of these things. I'll try and keep it brief in terms of my presentation so I can answer your specific questions. But I do want to cover just kind of how we came up with this process and what our purpose was, and then just go through some of the central aspects of what our process entails and how people would access those things, as well as how we're looking at refining some of these things after year one. So when we look at facility rentals, we have historically had our facilities rented, but even as far as the beginning of COVID, we had internal stakeholder groups who were reporting to me or showing just certain concerns that they had with opportunities we had to grow or refine our process. We had different areas of the district that were being rented in different ways. There were different touch points. There were different prices. In some cases, there were rules, and in some cases, there were not documented rules. So in that COVID sphere and going into last summer, I got a group together and we looked at trying to refine that process. We met with stakeholder groups internally. We reached out to surrounding districts, and then we looked at comparable districts that we felt like had a really good process when we looked at their website and was really clear as an outsider. And if it's clear as an outsider, we figured it must be really good for their community and really clear for their community to engage in that process. And so what we came up with really reflects some of that input as well as merging it with what works for our district, our size, our community. So now I lost my slide clicker, but that's okay. So what we
That was me.
oh, thank you. It's like, wow, he's got a clicker. What we learned from these other districts is there are some key components that make them, that made each of them feel successful. One of them was a really clearly and consistent set of guidelines that applied to all of their facilities, regardless of the external group, the internal group, whether it was a private rental, an organization, a 503C, or a business. That they had a very clear fee structure and schedule. Every one of those districts really told us we needed to be very, very careful with liability, not only from a state statute standpoint, because under state statute we need to protect the district, but also because we're stewards of community dollars, community facilities, so on and so forth. And then a very clear and very easy request form. And so what we set out to do is kind of mirror some of those things for our district. So if you go to the Prescott School District website and you go to community, you're going to see that there is a drop down, and I think I had it on my previous slide, and that's okay, that takes you to facility rental, and it takes you to a page that looks like the next slide. There we go. And it has those things set out. And we've tried to make this as easy as possible for our community members. So it's just a 1, 2, 3-step process. The first thing we ask them to do is to just read through our administrative guidelines. And these are things that are primarily driven by school board policy and state statute. And so they're things that you're going to see, like we're a tobacco and alcohol-free zone. We need to have that. They reflect some of the things that we gathered from both our legal representation, our insurance, as well as these external school districts that said you should really protect your school district by having some sort of liability clause in there that abdicates responsibility of the district for these external groups. So that's in there. And actually, Rick, can I have you go to the next slide for me? And so this is actually what that looks like. So we have our rules, we have our liability, and then a stipulation for supervision, which is a state statute that you need to ensure that there's adequate supervision in any sort of activity and ensure that it's not district supervision if it's not a district-related event. And so this is the document we ask every renter to go through, to read through prior to going through the rest of the process to make sure that it's still something they want to pursue, to make sure that before they go through the process they can get any materials or contact any other people involved in their organization to make sure that they can abide by these things. And once they're able to do those things, they can move on to the next step. But I want to pause for just a second and point out what is kind of the second heading there, which is liability. Because this is one of the areas that we had probably the most amount of questions this year, which is liability, specifically the second bullet point, which talks about liability insurance. And so as we went into this year, one of the things we realized was historically, we have been sporadic at best about having any group provide insurance. As I drove this, I felt like it would be irresponsible not to protect the school district and the investment of the community to make sure that we're not on the hook if something unfortunate or unforeseen happens. So what we put into place was we were asking and are asking anybody who's going to rent from us to have some sort of certificate of liability that lists the organization, that lists us as kind of not liable and will cover us and has adequate coverage for the type of activity. And we have everything from birthday parties up to like a wrestling event with thousands of people. So you can imagine it's not a one-size-fits-all, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible. One of the pieces of feedback we've gotten this year is we have a lot of families, and I think maybe a lot is subjective. We had 6 families this year who rented the elementary school for birthday parties. And it was difficult for them, they felt like, to navigate that liability insurance. They weren't businesses, they weren't organizations. And this was our first go at it. So looking ahead, we're looking at what acceptable alternatives are, because we had written that in. And we're going to try and see what we can do. But I want to caution us, just because I know you guys get questions on this too. that myself, I'm not an insurance expert, my staff isn't, and this isn't our primary thing that we do. So our goal is to have something that works for insurance, but also that is relatively easy, streamlined, and consistent to read. I don't really relish spending my days reading through each individual's 60-page homeowner's insurance policy. So I'm hoping that some of our external entities that we're working with can help us streamline that process, but that we can make it easier for families. It's also worth noting that a lot of our comp districts that we used no longer rent to individuals. In fact, a majority of them don't because of this very topic. So most of them are only going to businesses, organizations that already have this kind of coverage because of this topic. But we know, and I know Ms. Dusick values having people come in and using the building, and we all do, so we're going to try and navigate those waters to make it easier for people renting. Can I have you go to the next slide? Okay. The second aspect that we were told was really important was having a very clear, well-defined, and published fee schedule, and we didn't necessarily have that in the past. So we set out again to work with our stakeholders, and you can imagine the number of stakeholders that go into this. This is everyone from our custodial staff, our maintenance staff, trying to look at what our utilities cost, trying to work with our technology director and our technology staff, because a lot of outside entities are using our technology, all the way to some of our big ticket items like utilizing the auditorium, which includes thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, dance flooring, band shells. So what we look to do is, again, converge some of the things that existed and some of the things that we felt like would work for our district with some of the things that we were being advised to do by these other districts who had gone through a multi-year process. So the first thing that we did is we created these 4 groups, and actually we really just refined these 4 groups that are going to rent the district. The group that originally did the Performing Arts Center actually had a rental agreement, and these were the 4 groups that they had already documented out. So we didn't recreate the wheel, we just applied it to everyone because it didn't make sense that it was only being applied to one entity. And you can see that any internal school events, groups, programs, they're group 1, and I can tell you, looking at the fee schedule, they're not charged for anything. Similar to our conversation earlier, they may be paying a fee to be part of that activity. We're covering that completely internally. And as you move down from there, if you're a nonprofit, you're paying a minimal portion of the cost. Group 3 is paying a little bit more of the cost, and Group 4 is really paying just what it costs to actually and accurately run that event. That's all of the maintenance, the cost of staffing, the cost of setup and tear down, and all the other things that go into it. And so at the bottom, what I wanted to put down is that all of our fees really just take into consideration those things: our custodial, maintenance, our utilities, time to set up for events during the typical workday, and then we have additional fees. So if we're asking a custodian or a food service worker, which happened multiple times last year, to work outside of contracted hours, there are other fees that just come into play, and we have to pay them, and we have to pay them overtime. There's a state statute that says if you're going to use the kitchen or do food service, you have to have a certified food service person on site. Historically, that was happening, and the district was picking up the bill for all of those things. And in a lot of cases, the people who are renting, our businesses are for profit, so they were actually making money, and we were losing money. So we're just trying to balance that out to make sure that the actual cost of the event is calculated into the fees that they're paying. Can I have you go to the last slide for me? Once somebody has reviewed all this, if they're interested in requesting a facility rental, they've looked at our kind of rules, supervision, liability, what they would be agreeing to, they've reviewed the fee schedule, and they can go through and actually pretty much tabulate exactly how much it would cost them. If they're interested, we have a number 3, a form that's linked, and it's a very simple Google form, depending on the complexity of your rental. And as you go through this, it automatically sends me and my staff an email saying somebody wants to rent a facility. We reach out right away, and we coordinate the event with the site director. So if it's at the elementary school, I usually give that to Maddie Guerin or Michelle Tromberg because they know best which rooms are open and what's going to be best. They sign the agreement, they give us their proof of liability or insurance. And then we are very flexible on the payment. So we've had people do payment plans, we've had people pay up front, we've had people pay after the fact. That's usually me working with that group to say, what's going to make most sense to you and your group. So I told you I'd keep it brief, and I kind of lied to you. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry to the audience and all the community members. And the people who are watching online that can see the screen, now I found out. I'm glad you can see the screen. What are your questions? Because I see everyone writing things down.
Vicki, you got any questions?
No, I was just kind of taking notes on, it's nice to see that there's, the fee schedule thing was pretty wacky to understand last year. I looked at it a few times, and yeah, it was rather confusing. So I think those 3 items, the guidelines, the fee schedule, the request form, and then putting all of that stuff very clear. And I guess one question that I do have is, you're saying that we have, with the schools that you were talking to about their programs and how they've got all this rental agreement stuff set up, and they're no longer renting to individuals. What's the size of those districts, and do they have community centers?
That's a great question, and it's not what I expected. Actually, the communities that are still renting to individuals tend to be the larger ones, who are running a majority. Number one, they have a community education office dedicated to facility rentals, and they have a multitude of facilities, and so they're able to, I think, just be more customer service oriented and take care of the minutia of that. A majority of the districts our size, and even to like a River Falls, are a little more reductive in how they're allowing people or individuals, families to rent. Not to say that River Falls doesn't rent, I'm just saying a comparable size.
Okay. That, I was curious. No, I think that was really the only question I had.
Helen, you got any questions?
A couple. So the first thing, you kind of answered this one a little bit. I was wondering about the turnaround time, because in the past, people have maybe requested and not heard anything. And so you said pretty quick, but
24 hours.
That's pretty good. That's pretty quick. That's
So,
pretty quick.
so there's a few people who get this automatic email.
Okay.
And if it's athletics driven, and especially with our green space, Mr. Caudill takes care of that, and it's within 24 hours. I'm usually same day as well, if someone's reaching out.
The second question is, so say you say, yep, this is good, and then our district, all of a sudden something pops up. We can't just bump that group out, right? Or is there a rule?
We actually have a clause.
Saw something in there with that.
Yeah, we have a clause. It didn't happen at all this year, but for whatever reason, and it would have to be, once we give that group the space, that group has the space unless there's some sort of unforeseen emergency. You know, if all of a sudden I had an internal group that said, you know what, it'd be really nice to use the multi-purpose room today, we want to use it, can you bump that group? We're not going to bump that group. They've got it, it's on the facility calendar, we're treating that as gold. If, however, and this is something I talked about with our custodial staff, we have inclement weather, we have school off, we apologize, I'm reaching out, we can reschedule, we can try and, you know, be amenable to whatever your needs are, but we can't host it today because we're not hosting anything, and we haven't even plowed the parking lot yet.
Last question is, I saw you were in charge of it. You're a busy dude. So you said, kind of alluded that, like, is there other people that are going to help you with this? Because that's a lot on your plate.
And I'm really it maybe looks a little bit misleading. So I'm just trying to quarterback. But again, like at the elementary school, I'm kicking those things immediately to somebody who knows. I'll respond to that person and say, hey, it's nice. Thanks for reaching out. I'm going to attach Maddie Guerin to this email. She's going to work with you. I met with all the front office staff members who were identified by the admin last year that they wanted to be point person. And we went through all the requirements, the spreadsheet. So they each get pinged automatically when someone requests a facility, even before I'm reaching out. And one of the fields on here is, what building are you requesting? So already Maddie Guerin knows. I'm gonna get an email from Mr. Figge. Someone's coming to me for the elementary.
All right, sounds good.
That was one of my questions, how you got to be the guy quarterbacking this. So I appreciate that it's kind of being pushed off to other people, because it probably does become quite a responsibility when you're looking at all the different facilities and stuff. And I would love to hear from principals and administration in a year from now, like how much time did this take? Because I really think of you guys as leaders within the building, working with staff and kids in the building and not necessarily the facility rental crew, you know? And maybe it's not that big of an ask, but at the other side, the bigger districts you talk about, one that I work in, Community of Ed takes that kind of stuff over and they coordinate all that. And so my question is, well, maybe it's not a question. My request is like, let's revisit after we kind of work out some kinks this year and look at maybe it should be one person that's really kind of managing all this. Because again, you're leaders of the building and learning and teachers. So that was my main question. And then I just wanted to say, I really do appreciate the consistency with this. I was part of the Performing Arts Center group however many years ago. And I think we kind of had intentions that this would be something for all of our spaces down the road, and I just think it never got really quarterbacked, like you said. And so whenever I hear hard feelings in the community about this, it's because of the inconsistency. I think once I talk to people and say, well, yeah, who's paying for the custodial staff? Who's paying for the lights? Like everybody gets it. It's just the other group didn't have to do it. So I appreciate the consistency, and I think that this will really ease a lot of the just the questions within our community. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
More maybe just comments that I also appreciate. I think this is great. We should be consistent. I get a little bit, I cringe a little bit at those, we're making this harder potentially for some groups who have historically used our spaces who are doing good things. And that's a tough one for me to swallow. I do agree with, once people understand the costs that go into it, makes complete sense. I don't think many people feel bad about that. This isn't anything we can control, and I hope none of you guys work for insurance companies or your families do. The hard part I have with risk management type companies, right, is it's, if they had their way, we wouldn't do anything, ever, right? You can't do anything, right? There's always a reason not to do something. And so I just hope that the box that you showed earlier or comparable or something like that, I hope we can look at that and just find a balance to still all these groups like, and I'm sure you guys have thought about them, hunter safety and, and Boy Scouts and, the Prescott Fast Pitch Association, using the green spaces. There's, you guys know it all. I hope there's still a path to yes with a lot of this stuff. And at the end of the day, these are community buildings. We have to protect them. We have to be responsible for them, but the community also pays for them. And we got to at least find a path to yes. I guess that's all I'm saying.
Can I point out one thing I neglected to mention, but I think it's on our website, and we wanted to specifically call it out. Like hunter safety is a great example. Hunter safety goes through community education, and so they're automatically covered. Okay. And we've invited, it specifically says on the website, we invite anybody who wants to host some sort of event that falls into that category of community ed or even PCR related. It's automatically covered under our district insurance once it does that, and streamlines the process. And so then we've got two other people, Angela and Penny, that are really obviously responsive to helping them make their event great too.
So there's a way for organizations that would align with our mission, right, to be part of what we do and find that easier path to yes. So thank you. Cool.
And
okay.
That actually was, after speaking with Michael last year, that is what the Snowbees ended up doing for Snowmobile Club safety.
Yeah.
For snowmobile safety for kids, is they ran it through Penny and it worked great. So I think they were more than happy, so I'm assuming they will probably keep doing that because that took it off of their hands and they didn't have to worry about any of it. The liability. We can, you've got acceptable alternatives, you forgot.
I whispered, I was like,
sorry, Nikki.
Mike and I will step back.
And I actually know that someone has been in communication with you, so that's great. So the acceptable alternatives is, when you with your homeowner's insurance, you go to the golf course and you play golf and the ball goes flying and you hit someone's car and break their windshield, you can put that claim on your homeowner's insurance because you did it, it's your liability. So, you've got acceptable alternatives. You've got, it's a birthday party you can, or someone wants to use it just for their kid to practice when they're home from college, whatever the case is. So you've got some of that coverage under that sort of homeowner's policy. Those limits can go up if you want it, if you want an individual to increase, there's the possibility that they could do that. So I guess just need to kind of figure out what that liability limit is that we need to have and make sure we've got that in there somewhere. But then on the other hand, we do have to point out that the school district is a public entity and we are protected under the state of Wisconsin. There's a law that caps our limit of liability. So what is that, 50 grand per?
I don't want to speak
Yeah.
to that specific, but there are different levels
There
for
are
green
different levels.
space and,
Yeah.
activities.
So we do have, as a school district, we do have some immunity as far, or not immunity, but coverage, and we are capped. So we're not going to go way, we're not going to be paying a multi-million-dollar whatever, settlement because we can't be sued for that.
Yeah, and I
So-
want to just interject, because I do want to be clear that why we highlighted acceptable alternatives is, if I'm not mistaken, it was there before, we just didn't have a standard practice. I think one of the things that Josh and I wanted to bring forward to you is, yes, we have been reaching out to our community and insurance agents, as well as our district insurance company. Homeowners insurance can be a viable, acceptable alternative. The difference is that when we lease to like cab community or you have a wrestling, their associations oftentimes already have insurance and their liability insurance is like $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah.
Homeowners rarely carry that much. Now, it also, if you're having a wrestling where someone could break a neck, right, that's going to be an issue. Where a jumper at a holiday party or a cake, it probably won't be that big. The only thing is, I did want to share, is that we've run it by our insurance company. You have a handout of what they've asked and why supervise. So some people have said, we don't need a custodian, or we don't need a supervisor. But the reality is, we do.
Yeah.
And so that's where fees come in.
Yep.
The other thing is, we are trying to balance between the path of yes and trying to make sure that we don't make it too difficult. And one of the challenges I think that Josh and his team and we're trying to work on is, we don't want to receive everybody's homeowner's insurance. And so there is something called evidence of insurability. Depending on the event, it'll be weighed as an option, and we're going to get some exemplars so that Josh doesn't have to sift through 60-page documents.
Yeah, no,
So we wanted to make
that's
sure that people can go that way. You can go through community ed and PCR are options. But we also have to remember that sometimes people have rented kitchens and wanted to do things or bring in pizza ovens. So they also can create fires. And so it's not just injury, but it could be, $300,000 isn't going to repair a gym.
Right.
And so we just want to make sure that it's not just about an accident, but it also could be damage.
Yep.
Right? Anything else that you would want us to pursue? But I wanted to just let you know that we are working with people in the community, and we'll continue to work with families if they're individuals and want to rent our space, not as an enterprise.
All right. Thanks, Josh. We'll move on to item C, update on importance of August 30th and 31st return to learn plans.
Yeah, there's a statute in the state that the official school day is in the state of Wisconsin is September 1st, and we are abiding by that. September 1st is a Friday, and that makes it difficult if you want to try to ramp up to learning. And so one of the things that we have done historically over the last few years has been an opportunity for our students to get into their classrooms, build on relationships, and have kind of a zero entry pool into the academic year. This is an incredibly unique year for the Prescott Public Schools and our community. We have flip-flopped 2 buildings. 100% of our 6th, 7th, and 8th grader students will be now at 1220 St. Croix. Our 4th and 5th grade students will now be at 125 North Elm Street. They will have their teachers and staff completely in new rooms and new spaces. So we really wanted to encourage an opportunity, if we're focused on learning, to have an invitation. We provide busing, we provide food, 100% of our instructional staff will be on site, and we have great team building and relationship building activities that are planned. So we are open on August 30th, which is Wednesday, and August 31st, which is Thursday. It will differ, and every single school has information on their website about kind of the activities. At the high school, they kind of stagger it by the grade levels. Middle school has been working with 8th grade students who become ambassadors and provide student mentorship to 6th grade students, and we're really excited about these days. In addition, it becomes a fiscal, an important step for us in how public schools are funded, and that you're funded by your overall enrollment. And summer school participants generate additional income for the Prescott Public Schools. And so not only is learning and the relationship building paramount, but we also want to make sure that we can continue these programs for all students. So just a reminder, August 30th and 31st, transportation and food service is provided. All bus schedules are now available in Infinite Campus. Parents can access that information using their mobile device or logging into Infinite Campus. 100% of our front office staff are now working. All of the phones have been transferred and now ring. And so when you call, you are now calling the middle school at 1220, and you are now calling the intermediate school at 125. We're happy to answer any questions. A lot of that information is on the website. And do you have any questions or any questions that you're hearing from the community?
Just going to open it up here. Anybody have a question? You want to jump in here?
No. I don't have a question, but a comment. If you look on Google Maps, they've already switched the names on the schools.
Ooh, that's really impressive.
That's pretty good, actually.
Just saw that.
No, this is impressive to get all this done in such a short amount of time and get us to a point where we can occupy the buildings, hopefully, by the beginning of the school year. So, I think you have another item here on item E, so we can talk about it there. But
Please say yes.
Well, I'll let them talk on item E. We'll go to item D here. Update employee handbook.
All right. Well, I just wanted to thank also Andrea and Mandy. Mandy Matzik and Andrea Herzon have been working with Andy Holland. Our website is updated, so when you click on Prescott Middle School, what do you see? You see 1220. When you click on the intermediate, you see the building at 125. The phone numbers have been ported. It's important because we use voice over internet protocol. We had to make sure that our E911 calls, that when you pick up the phone, it's wired. In addition, just this morning, our mobile devices, if you go online and click on the school system, there were some static pictures that were still not up to date like they were on a PC, and those have been resolved. So little by little, you'll continue to see all of these transformations. In addition, some of the signage is going up on the buildings as well. And as just shared, our Google Maps is also sharing that. So thank you for all the work behind the scenes by our technology department and communications specialists.
All right. Now we're on item D, update on employee handbook.
So our new staff who arrived here the other day have an opportunity to be oriented to the Prescott Public Schools, and also they go through the employee handbook. The last time we updated it was over 2 years ago. We had a large rewrite and reorganization that had a committee of teacher leaders. At that time, we went through and looked at the table of contents. We made sure that we reordered because it started off, believe it or not, with termination. And we just thought that that is not the way that you welcome an on-board employee. So there is a letter that says, hey, we're damn proud of our district and we're really happy that you joined us. Very similar to the survey results that are under the Prescott employment page as well. Then it walks through kind of employee rights and key policies. All of these Policies that are mentioned, obviously, are brief snapshots of what is available on the website for all employees, and then it's hyperlinked. Chantel Byram is our HR director. She typically would be here to present this. She is the one that has been the point person working on this with different administration and supervisors. It then goes into the working conditions and work hours, and then workplace safety, articles of benefits. It talks about leave practices, reduction of workforce, the management rights, and then there are 3 sections. One are for licensed staff, which are all labeled A. You get into our support staff, which are all with labeled with a B. Oftentimes just like our policies, and they mimic each other and mirror. And then section C is bus drivers. Wanted to share that very similar to Neola, and I'll try to get to a page that would show it. Probably not in policies because those didn't change. What we did is throughout the document, everything that was either added is in a different font. Anything that was removed has a strike through. This is something that we wanted to make sure that people could take the previous version and do the trust walk to make sure that it's cross-referenced and understand what's being changed. I wanted to be very clear, there was very little substantive changes to the handbook. Mm-hmm. What we were looking at is, last time we worked with our faculty and staff was to talk specifically, you often write to be understood. In an employee handbook, you want to write so that you can't be misunderstood. You don't want 2 people to read the same paragraph and come away with maybe slightly different points of view. And so that was really the work that has been done over the last couple of years, where staff, our PLC leads, principals, our supervisors have brought issues forward to the HR department on language that they would like to see added or tweaked. So there really isn't anything substantive that's different, but I did want to bring to your attention, and I had written up a summary for you, and then would entertain any questions that you have. You are aware that we have about 12 to 14 individuals who are referred to as Tier 1 employees. They are the last licensed staff who have health care paid for in retirement. That group is our most senior group. They also have been allowed and participate in the additional benefits that were added by the school board in 2016 when we transferred to a 403B match. You also added an HSA payment for individuals that were on our high deductible plan with regards to health savings accounts, and wanted to make sure that you also have tweaked historically both on personal days and sick days, where sometimes staff had to pay for their first personal day or for their first sub. We've taken that away across time. So I just wanted to let you know that there had been some substantive changes, but wanted to let you know that we had our WEA came in who talks about retirement. We did work with SF Insurance who assists us, and Chantel has been meeting with that Tier 1 group. I would be remiss if I didn't share with you that one of the questions that they had come forward with is that the rate at which the district contributes toward their health insurance in retirement for a maximum of 5 years up to Medicaid eligible is fixed at the 2016 rate. You've seen the graphs. You know that for health care, the district currently is paying about $26,000 to $27,000 per staff member. And at the time, the guiding question for kind of guiding change was that we wanted to invest more of our dollars in staff who are actively working with us versus trying to balance into retirement. Pension is still available, and then with the Affordable Care Act, the market is available. And so that change was made, but because of the age of some employees, it still is available to those individuals. But I wanted to make sure that you understood that we were having some of those conversations. At this time, we are currently building our budget. We just finished our audit, and we do have to have our fiscal year 2024 published. I have warned and spoke with you all about the need for public educational funding. We received about 50% on the dollar of what we knew as a district we would need to be able to stay just static. And so with the $325 per pupil, we will be very difficult to come in with a balanced budget. Part of that was known. Part of it is that we had a fund balance, and we're going to try to do everything we can. We have till October to kind of figure out how balanced or unbalanced you're willing to, what risk you're willing to take. But obviously, there's going to be long-term, an ongoing conversation this year as we plan, because the biennium budget has already been approved. So we kind of know our status for the next 2 years. The other group that has asked for at least changes to the handbook is in reference to our aides. It really comes down to, as an hourly group and our food service, is that when we have inclement weather and we're not open, they're not paid, because they paid for when they provide service. It's a really difficult balance to pay somebody not to work. In our handbook, we have historically made up snow days, but because of technology, we've moved to distance learning and have the opportunity where staff are able to still deliver instruction and continuity of learning programs in a different way. Our custodians are required to report. They are deemed essential personnel. Both for fire code, they have to come and make sure that they do the first sweep, and they have to continue to work in clearing snow and partnering on that. So very different responsibilities for our licensed staff, administration, but the two groups that often then are receive a hardship have been that we do reimburse our food service and aides 2 days that are not made up for inclement weather. Obviously, you know that last year was unique and that we had many snow days. They had asked for us to consider a paid time off option. We did examine it. We have looked at it. At this time, our finance department does not believe that we could maintain the same number of days as paid time off when there, to some degree, aides are essential for both special education programming and also for general ed staffing. And so if they were to use days as vacation or personal days instead of true sick, we're not only paying for that time off, but we're also paying for a substitute that's essential to carry out an individual educational plan. And we also have had very difficult time. It's the only group that we are not fully staffed at this time, beginning the year, and we don't have a lot of subs. We've been working with the principals, trying to figure out an option. We've worked with finance. We would like to entertain a pilot with our aides, is that we would sustain the language that's in the handbook for the 2 days, but offer the opportunity that they could, if they do not use all of their sick time, that they would be able to use up to 2 sick days to cash in on their hours. So that obviously it's not a full PTO system, but it would allow them to transfer a sick day to get reimbursed for inclement weather. And at this time, we are specifying that it would still have to be for inclement weather when the system closes down versus a vacation day. Otherwise, I don't think there was anything else that we had identified as major concerns or that was dramatically different. And so just wanted to know if there were any specific sections or wording choices that you wanted us to attend to, or any follow-up with regards to Tier 1 or this pilot proposal maybe coming back in September.
Pat, do you get any questions, comments?
No, not right now, no.
Tanya?
No, I'm curious to know how this pans out this year with the reimbursement of the 2 sick days, and maybe that increases the amount of time people are here when kids are here, right? Because they're saving those sick days to get reimbursed too. So I'm just kind of curious how that works out. Creative thinking.
Vicki?
I don't have anything.
Everything.
I don't have anything either, Rick.
Okay. This will come back then as a business item for you to kind of approve overall. And then it does go out to, we do, just to let you know, it goes out into our Skyward system. All staff have ability to see that because that's where their paychecks, their W-2s are. And then there's an audit feature that verifies that they actually saw it and have read it.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to item E, update on referendum projects.
Goodness gracious. So the main question you may have is, are we going to be able to open? And the answer is absolutely. The show must go on. It'll be maybe the death of me, but we will be there. And I don't think anybody, a couple days ago, if they were walking through, would believe it. But a lot has happened. Do want to share that 3 of our buildings, from the high school, our intermediate, and Malone Elementary, 100% of the furniture is where it needs to be. All of the classrooms have their furniture and updates, and the hallways are mostly clear, with the exception a little bit of Malone. We're waiting on some sinks that'll be on the bathrooms that were redone at the crossroad section of Malone. The 2 next big steps for us as a district in order to have occupancy is the fire alarms that were changed in 3 of our buildings do require the state fire marshal to come in and work on that, and that will occur on Friday. That also works in tandem with our local fire department and Mike Hoyka. We will, and I've clarified this, we will know at the end of the day whether or not that has passed and gives us occupancy. That's step 1. Step 2 is then our buildings also have to pass construction, and that building observation is scheduled for Monday, the 21st. Inspection, yep, the building inspection. The building inspector primarily is concerned with 1, the fire alarm that will happen on Friday, and then second, it's about pathways, the egress. And so one of the questions has been, what about the middle school with regards to the mezzanines, because they are a primary fire escape pathway. There are 2 mezzanines. The main mezzanine that we're concerned about is with regards to the left of door number 1 at the middle school. The concrete top level will be poured on Friday, and the stairs will be poured on Monday, the day that the inspector will be there. So there's a 40% chance of rain tonight, otherwise it's dry. Our goal is that water is not our friend for that, specifically on that mezzanine, because that's the one that we're replacing because of the water infiltration into the weight room and the wrestling room. Over the summer, as we deconstructed, we did have some storms, and so that room currently had to be deconstructed due to all the water damage that has occurred. Right now, there is no water infiltration into the wrestling room. We're still trying to make sure that this last step is taken care of and make sure that it's watertight. We will come back with a proposal what to do with that space, but it is gutted. We're removing all of the water damage, and we'll dry it out and make sure that it's safe air quality and things like that. Parking. If it does not rain tonight, Malone Elementary will be complete with the back parking lot done in one drop. It has been approved. If it does occur tomorrow, we will be able to have our staff park in the back on August 22nd for orientation. Between the bus garage and the middle school, that area will be also paved and would be available for parking for our middle school teachers for August 22nd. I want to compliment our principals for their flexibility. Mr. Igo and Mr. Figge, 612, do a lot of collaboration with the academics. If we have to, we will do 100% of the first day with the teachers up here, and into load balance and making sure that our staff have the time they need to make sure that their rooms are ready. we have back engineered our orientation week. So the presentations with regards to the status of our academics and the kickoff with regards to Vision 2035 will happen on Thursday, and that's the all-staff luncheon. So the first few days will be specific to our staff getting ready. Wanted to also thank our football coach, Andrew Caudill, and our custodians. Our football team is volunteering to help move some of the curricular boxes on Monday to complete the transfer. And on Thursday and Friday, the last 3 semis will be delivering furniture to the 2 schools that have been in storage. So 100% of the flooring is done in all buildings, including the middle school. And now the cafeteria is being waxed, and that will be done next week. And so we can move in and free up our gymnasiums as well. It's a fight to the finish, but we will be there. We don't believe 100% of all things will be done. There will be some trim, there will be some things that we have to take care of. However, occupancy and the learning and the technology and the phones will all be functional by August 30th when we welcome our kids.
Awesome. Pat, did you have anything here? Tanya?
No, great.
Okay, anything down here, guys?
No.
All right, yeah. Well done, you guys. Keep up the good work. This is great. All right, item F. What do we got here? Board agenda posting locations update.
Yes, in our, typically, we have notified that we always have, we have dedicated that the Pierce County Journal is our paper of record. We publish our agendas there. We have 3 other locations. The U.S. Post Office in Prescott notified us that they no longer are allowing anything other than U.S. postal postings. And so we worked with Patak's grocery store, and they have agreed to give us a designated spot. So we will continue to post at the City Hall, and Patak's bulletin board will be new, and then all agendas are obviously electronically available on the Prescott website.
All right. Anything else? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. Recognition of visitors. Anybody in the audience could be recognized? All right. We shall move on to item 11. The board will consider a motion to convene in closed session under exemption 1985-1F in room 117 here. First statute for seclusion and physical restraint, special education annual report is Wisconsin statute 1985-1F. You want me to read all that, Rick?
You just have to read the beginning, and it is 1F and also 1E.
Yeah.
Or 2 things specific to assets.
So the assets for 1985-1E, yeah, both number 2 and 3 cover that statute. So we will take a motion here and consider going into closed session for those statutes at a particular time.
So moved.
How about, should we say in 10 minutes, like 8:55?
Or
7:55?
7:55.
Yeah.
7:55?
Yeah.
All right.
Or at
Is that good?
7:55, yep.
So moved. Pat?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll be going into closed session in a few minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.